Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is promising to give details about a sitting member of Parliament who he says has been occupying government lands under questionable circumstances. Now, Mr. Holness raised the matter as he addressed party supporters at a Jamaica Labour Party Area Council 1 meeting at the Girl Guides Association headquarters in St. Andrew on Sunday. Last Friday, the Prime Minister issued a statement in the wake of the controversy relating to the then Minister without portfolio in the Agriculture Minister J.C. Hutchinson. At the time, Mr. Holness said he directed the Sugar Corporation of Jamaica to immediately cease all land transactions that may be in progress, including divestments and leases, pending a review by the Cabinet Office. That review has started, and the Prime Minister revealed what has so far emerged.
We have come across many people in the pot who have been jumping up and shouting and criticizing our steaming kettle. And they have persons there who are presently occupying government land without paying any rent or any form of remedies, who are doing business there.
Mr. Holness went further.
Not paying any light bill. I've been asked to do so, but haven't done so. They continue in Parliament, and they are occupying the lands. They have no documentation. They conduct business there. They are using the government's electricity. Well, the government is paying for it.
No further details from the Prime Minister, but he's promised to give more information.
So we will, like them, drip, 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 drip. Because we may have, a little tank. They have a reservoir.
Meanwhile, as it relates to J.C. Hutchinson, Mr. Holness defended his decision to transfer him from the Agriculture Ministry to the Office of the Prime Minister.
It is clear that he is a man that understands where the society is going as it relates to what we require for probity, accountability, and transparency.
The reassignment followed controversy over the decision by SCJ Holdings to allow a company, Holland Producers Limited, to take control of more than 2,000 acres of land in St. Elizabeth, based on a recommendation from Mr. Hutchinson. Mr. Hutchinson's partner and the mother of his child, Lola Marshall Williams, was a director of Holland Producers. Vashan Brown, TVJ News. In the meantime, Mr. Holness rejected claims that the scandals plaguing his administration could affect the Jamaica Labour Party's chances of winning a second term at the polls.
No one is perfect. Everyone sometimes have their faults and flaws. The electorate will not judge you on perfection. The electorate will judge you on your aspiration, because politics is always aspirational. What is it that you strive to achieve?
President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, NAJ, Carmen Johnson, says the administration of the University of the West Indies Mona campus should meet with nursing students to address their concerns. TVJ News reported yesterday that a standoff is brewing between the university and the nursing students over the request for them to sign a waiver which would remove liability from the institution should the nurses contract COVID-19. The document, which was given to the students by the University of the West Indies Mona campus, relieves the institution, the University Hospital of the West Indies, and other clinical sites from any responsibility should the nurses contract the coronavirus. While the document states that participation in clinical rotation during the pandemic is voluntary, it's mandatory for the program completion. For students who signed the document, the university provides them with personal protective equipment, PPEs, but one student claims what is provided is not sufficient.
What we got to go on the ward is 6 pairs of gloves and 6 masks, 6 pairs of gloves and 6 masks. And we're going out in the clinical area for some of us 3 days, some of us 4 days for the week. The mask would last, say, one mask would last for 4 hours. So basically, we're on the ward for some of us 6 hours, for 8 hours, some of us 8 hours, and some of us 12 hours.
Other concerns include students with underlying health issues who have to take public transport to school. The students claim there's no provision for them. President of the Nurses Association of Jamaica, NAJ, Carmen Johnson, says since students have to do clinical rotations to complete their program, the university must have a discussion with the students to address the concerns. Mrs. Johnson says the institution has a responsibility to its students. She was speaking on the morning agenda on Power 106.
The universities must seek to have that wholesome discussions with the students to look at it, because they must provide some levels of PPE for the students. And I can accept it being voluntary, because remember, student status is a voluntary thing where you decide when you train, how you train, and the university can just say to you, don't go in the clinical area or go in the clinical area. It's up to you to decide where you want to. While being cognizant that you must meet the required number of clinical hours of experience that you must have in order for the nursing council to say you have fulfilled the requirements of your training. And so the university, all schools, all nursing schools must seek to provide their students with some of the PPEs that they need. They are paying students, and we can understand their constraints, but they have to understand also that they have a responsibility to the students.
Vashon Brown, TVJ News. The decline in water levels at the Mona Reservoir and the Hermitage Dam has worsened, with the National Water Commission, NWC, announcing that starting today, it will reduce supply to several communities in the corporate area. Customers served by the Mona treatment plant will now receive water 12 hours daily instead of 16 hours. On Friday, the Mona Reservoir was at 38.2% of capacity and the Hermitage Dam at 31.5%. The current dry period is now in the 7th month. Now, the Corporate Public Relations Manager at the NWC, Andrew Cannon, told the TVJ News that the entity had no choice but to tighten restrictions.
Over the past several weeks, because there has been no rainfall, our inflows have been adversely affected. In light of all of that, it was absolutely necessary at this time to reduce the number of hours by which residents are served from the Mona treatment plant. No more than ever, we need the cooperation of all residents, because with this prohibition order that is now in effect, water should only be used for essential purposes. The NWC cannot predict, how long the drought will last.
Some of the areas served by the Mona treatment plant include sections of Mona, Old Hope Road, Harborview, Crossroads, Cassia Park Road, Mountain View Avenue, sections of Halfway Tree Road, Waterloo Road, New Kingston, Hagley Park Road, and downtown Kingston. And we now take a break on the Midday News. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Continuing the news now. As the dry period continues with no end in sight for the next few months, there are growing questions and concerns in Manchester. Now, those concerns were voiced by Central Manchester MP and opposition spokesman on education, Peter Bunting, who says a catastrophe looms for schools and communities.
Even without a drought, sections of Manchester suffer because of a limited water supply. But with the current drought and the COVID-19 pandemic, the opposition spokesman on education and Central Manchester MP Peter Bunting is questioning the government's water plans going forward. Firstly, he says parents, teachers and school administrators are on the verge of panic.
At this point in time, there will be heightened sanitation needs, but we're in the middle of a drought, and the allocations made for trucking water are totally inadequate at this time. We cannot face the risks of reopening schools without having adequate water supply to all these schools.
Currently, schools like Mayday High have installed hand washing and sanitization stations for the CSEC and CAPE exam students. However, come September, when students from all grades return, the demand for water will increase. But Schools are not Mr. Bunting's only concern. He says residents of communities like the first phase of the Perth housing scheme are livid about the lack of water. Another phase, Perth 1A, is to be handed over to new residents soon.
The houses are well advanced now. The first phase 1A is complete. Phase 2, 4 different contractors are building houses and still not a drop of water for that housing scheme. This is going to create a great deal of problems next year and later this year when persons start moving into their new homes and realize that they're going to be incurring tremendous costs for trucking water.
The proposed upgrade of the Greater Mandeville water system has been in discussion since 2010 and is expected to improve supply beyond Mandeville. Both the PNP and the JLP have formed the government over the decade since, but it is yet to be completed. Nonetheless, considering the issues of 2020, Mr. Bunting wants immediate action.
So I'm really calling on the government, on the Minister of Water, who is ultimately the Prime Minister, and the NWC to accelerate the upgrade, which was financed by the NHT. Over 800 million was committed as a loan to the Water Commission, particularly to upgrade the Greater Mandeville Water Supply Scheme. And I am disappointed that there seems to be very little progress evident at this time.
Prince Moore, TVJ News.
A farmer's search for over 30 heads of cattle ended in heartbreak over the weekend when only 7 of the animals were recovered alive. The others were slaughtered and were being prepared for sale. However, the police made quick progress in the case and have since arrested a man who they say will be charged. More in this report from Dwayne Anderson.
An operation in Havana Heights, Clarendon, Friday evening resulted in the recovery of 7 cows and thousands of pounds of meat. A vehicle, a small truck, as well as farm tools were seized from the area where the animals were being slaughtered and prepared for sale. The police believe this is one of the hubs for the illicit meat trade in the parish. One man has been held in connection with the find. He is to be charged soon.
Several men ran from the police inside the bushes. On further investigations, it revealed several animal carcasses inside the area. Over 3,500 pounds of animal carcass. This, to me, is a very terrible situation. It signals to us that there is a black market type of activity here where persons try to get meat in the system the illegal way. I want to use this opportunity to warn those persons, pray the lastness, that we are on their tails.
Barry, a cattle farmer, said the thieves struck nearly a week before.
You know, Monday evening I go to bush and I call them, and when I go them, I don't see them. The man then take them fine at the 2 o'clock hours. 30 I call them. I'm gone and I search down the whole bush. I search till I catch a Lionel Town, Banks, all them places they can think about. Right now we come like a 1 year I work and I rest. The way my body mash up. 30 I call them, the man then take. Just like that.
The farmer said most of his animals are not fit for consumption and therefore begged persons not to buy cow meat from unregistered meat shops in the Havana Heights area or neighboring communities.
All the cow them where you see where I suckle, the calf them, all of them pregnant. Every cow where them kill pregnant different from the bull them. So anybody that go eat the meat not good. Because pregnant animal them, the meat can't eat.
The farmer says losing over 20 heads of cattle will put his losses into the millions. Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
Relatives of missing University of the West Indies student Jasmine Dean are calling for the authorities to provide more support and additional manpower to locate her. The latest call came during a peaceful protest by relatives and residents in St. Thomas yesterday. More in this report.
Jasmine Dean's father is again calling on the police and members of the community to do more to assist him in finding his daughter, who disappeared in February. 49-year-old Lloyd Dean lamented the slow pace of the search to find her.
We're not saying the police not doing their job good, but, you know, we need a little more help in finding out what happened to Jasmine, because if we have 2 persons in custody, with her things, her belongings, just as she missed, you know, in the space of the next 3 hours, someone was using her card. And we find that person. You're supposed to can tell me what happened to the little girl.
Family members and residents of the community say it has been difficult to cope since Jasmine Dean's disappearance 4 months ago.
I've had sleepless nights. I'm drained, to be honest. I still can't believe that someone from our own community did this to her.
We not take this easy because we can't even rest all now. We can't even sleep. Every day we wish about the little girl, warm to the little girl.
TVJ News understands that persons in Bull Bay, where Jasmine Dean lived, have expressed fear because the 2 men who are persons of interest in the case and were charged are also from the community. There is also an appeal for anyone with information to come forward.
Again, she might still be alive. We are keeping hope as a community, and we are asking the community, persons with information, to come forward with information. What happened to Jasmine Dean could happen to a sister of ours. It could happen to a daughter. It could happen to a niece. And so we need persons to come with information.
The police charged 2 men who are persons of interest in the case of Jasmine Dean. 40-year-old Tamar Henry, also called Braff and Lavish, and 36-year-old Gregory Wright, otherwise called G, remain in police custody after being charged with possession of identity information, unauthorized access to computer data, and simple larceny. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
Sports now. At sports time, the West Indies had reached 173 for 7, chasing 312 for victory against England on day 5 of the second test at Old Trafford in Manchester. Shamar Brooks and the Jamaican Jermaine Blackwood top scored with 62 and 55 respectively. Stuart Broad has led the way with the ball for the home side with 3 for 42. England needs another 2 wicket to level the 3-match test series. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Don't forget to join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a wonderful afternoon.